Hey everyone, Laura here.
Tanya here.
We've been friends for over a decade and worked together for a long time in call centers as agents, quality analysts, managers, and supervisors.
In 2018, we started up this podcast to talk about the batshit bonkers bullshit we see and continue to see in our time at work and at home as consumers.
We also share your stories as both consumers and as employees.
So keep them coming to Q as in cucumber at yahoo.com.
We host the show anonymously and use aliases. In the stories we tell, we change names and identifying details of people, locations, and companies.
We also share your emails anonymously, so any similarities to real people, locations, or companies is purely coincidental.
So if you think we're talking about you, guilty conscience much?
Now on with the fun.
Love your faces.
Smooches.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
This job would be great if it wasn't for the fucking customers.
You're always this stupid. It is you take lessons. Just calm down.
Oh, fuck you!
You can't handle the truth.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
In other words, be nice, asshole.
Welcome to another episode of Q is in Cucumber. I'm Laura Mack.
And I'm Tanya Edwards.
Today we're going to talk about job avoidance. The things that people do to avoid taking calls. Sometimes they work harder to not take calls than they would have worked had they just taken a goddamn call.
You know what? I used to say the same thing like I used to do when the kids were little. I had this job that I did for a couple of years where I worked doing UAs for parole and probation.
Oh, yeah.
And if those folks put
You
half
told
as
me
much
about that.
time into staying clean and being productive members of society as they did to finding drugs, making drugs, and avoiding coming up hot on a drug test, they would have been goddamn billionaires. I mean, for real. And that's the same thing. Like, whenever you're in a call center, we're paying you to take fucking phone calls. That doesn't mean we have people that will get their cell phone out, sneak it out on the floor, call the 800 number for whatever concept they're on until they get themselves, and then sit there with their phone in their pocket doing nothing because it looks like they're on a call.
Oh my God. That reminds me, as I said before, I love Newton's. Newton's was a great company, and I don't have too many stories, but this guy was special. It was crazy what he did, and this is such a long story, so I'm going to simplify it as much as I can. So there were a couple of events that led to this moment. One was they implemented this tier system of your A, B, and C clients. And all that was supposed to do was to tell people your A clients are the people that you make the most time for. You call them back. You prioritize calling them over everybody else.
Yeah.
But with these, they didn't explain that very well. And what some of these people thought that meant was I could treat my B and C clients
Like shit.
like shit. And it was like, no. So that was the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened was they implemented this thing where they said you have to have, most people that work in call centers are going to think this is bizarre. You have to have at least 2 hours of talk time a day. Which I'm like, you work 8 to 10 hours depending on the shift. That you need 2 whole hours of time on the phone. That's crazy. But they didn't want them to do all their deals and stuff through email because they wanted to build a personal relationship with these customers so that they will send you more business.
Right.
Okay, fine. The third thing that happened that led to this was we hired my new QA, Dee Dee. And Dee Dee didn't have access to all the systems that she needed when she first started. And one of the systems was being able to look up their call logs of their notes and see what, I would pull all their notes and say, okay, this call, there's a significant amount of notes. It looks like it was a significant conversation. I'm going to search by this phone number at this time and look for the call. Well, Dee Dee didn't have access to that. So she was just pulling giant lists, like all the calls these reps took. I told her to sort them by the longest time and kind of maybe scroll down a page to get to a more reasonably lengthed call. Because some of those longer ones might be like conference call meetings and stuff that last about an hour. and scroll down and try to find a reasonably lengthed call. Well, she pulled a call for this guy, and I'm just going to call him Billy. Billy was still fairly new, but he had this amazing deal that went through about middle of the year that set his numbers for the rest of the year. He was going to get a banging bonus, but he wanted that extra kicker that you got for having at least 2 hours of talk time a day. Now, I hadn't caught this because I was always just looking for the specific phone number at a specific time. Because Dee Dee was pulling their entire call logs, she saw this. So I had done my coaching with her in the morning. I came home and was working from home for the rest of the afternoon. Towards the end of the day, she calls me in this panic and she's like, we got a problem. I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, this agent is calling in to the bridge line, to the conference line, and putting in the code and sitting there with a dead line for hours.
For one, okay, so how does the agent know the number to the bridge line?
Because we had the bridge line because we had sites.
Oh.
We would have meetings all over the place.
Oh, okay.
For, we have sites all over the country.
Yeah,
so
so
everybody would hop on these bridge lines. So that's why he has it. Plus, each agent had their own bridge line so that they could have conference calls with like their clients or IT or whatever it needed. She figured this out. You could see the phone number and she's like, he's dialing the same number and he's sitting there in silence. Now, she does not need to listen to the silence to see this. Most people who are QAs will know this, but a lot of people won't. When you open up a file of a call, you'll see the little wave on the bottom to see where they're talking and where maybe there's dead air and where there was a hold or whatever. She opens up the file and it's just a straight line. It's dead. And she's like, okay. There are hundreds of these calls in like just a single month. I'm like, oh, Jesus. Okay, I'm going to start looking into this. We'll deal with it in the morning. The next morning, we've gone through and we've figured out that like 40% of his calls were that.
We're just the bridge line,
because
him doing nothing.
He didn't need to do anything because he got this amazing deal. He could have gotten more, but, whatever. Okay, fine. But he wanted this kicker. So we get his boss, who I loved, into a room. The manager was not understanding what we were asking.
Right.
He was like, can you just listen to 10 of these calls? And that way I can go to HR and I can say, okay, we pulled a percentage. We can tell you, statistically, this is probably what he's doing. And we're like, no. We don't, because he thought we needed to listen to the whole thing because these people didn't listen to calls before I got there. Like none of the managers did this.
Right.
So we're like, no. We're not telling you we think this is what he's doing.
We know.
We're telling you we know this is what he's doing. And he was like, wait a minute, this is verified? We're like, yes, 40% of his calls are this. And he's like, oh, shit. And I mean, this caused a freak out because then we found out multiple agents were doing this who got like these big deals that were basically just killing time. And it caused a big stink, and it was like, oh, good. But it felt like, how much harder did you have to work? Now, here's the thing that kills me. They ended up firing that kid, but for some reason, they were too stupid, like, because this isn't like Shoe or Cal, where you had, adults that you had to treat like children. Right? These were people that they treated like adults. Well, they didn't ever anticipate that anybody would ever do anything like this, and they didn't write the rules for your bonus payout, and they didn't run it past HR first. Even though this kid got fired, he still got his bonus. So when we had other people fired, when they found that out, they tried to go back and say, well, but by that point, they had actually changed it.
Right.
But even though that kid did that, he still got his bonus.
Even we just rolled out a new bonus structure, and it even says, like, in everything, like every page that you pull up, every report you pull that has like the rankings and the agents' names and how much money they're going to get and everything else, it says in giant letters, must be employed with Schmuckies to receive bonus.
Yep.
At the time of payout.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can't, because, I've had agents in the past, like, message me whenever we had a different bonus structure in place, like, well, so, and they got fired, and they're just like, well, do I still get my bonus? No.
Well, here's the thing is, like, X Cellular did that. They fucked up hard. They gave me I won that trip.
Uh-huh.
But they didn't put in any of the paperwork. that you had to be a current employee.
Right. So
So they let me go right before I was supposed to take that trip, and then they wouldn't let me go. So I took the paperwork, and I took them to small claims court, and I ended up getting like thousands of dollars because they didn't actually put on there
right.
that you had to be a current employee. And I talked to somebody who went on the trip like 2 years later. They're like, oh, yeah, that's in there now. I'm
Yeah,
like, because they
yeah.
had to pay me for it.
Right.
But yeah, like that one, that was crazy. But the guy that will always like take the cake of somebody who worked so hard to avoid working is this guy. To this day, I'll call him Rob because just crazy. Sophia was the one monitoring him. And I think this was before. I know we were SHU at the time, but I'm not sure you were in project yet. Or if you were, you weren't really helping with us at all. You certainly weren't doing collections yet. But Sophia was monitoring this kid, and she was struggling hard because she couldn't find any calls for him. He wasn't recording. And I mean, this went on for months where his manager sat right next to him, and his manager's like, I'm literally sitting listening to him take calls all day. Like, why aren't these recording? We're filing tickets with IT. We're doing research. She ends up doing side-by-sides with him, which, in collections, side-by-sides are painful.
Yes.
Because in general customer care, you're getting call after call after call. In collections, you can go 3 hours leaving messages before you actually talk to somebody.
Yep.
So doing side-by-sides is
A
hard.
Bitch. Yep.
She ended up having to do them, and it was sucking up tons of her time. And it was like, good Lord. But he just wasn't recording, and they could not figure it out. So he's having these conversations, and his manager's hearing him. And finally, IT comes up, and they're like, he is recording. He's literally, because also what was happening was his call logs weren't recording.
Right.
So we're sitting here going, look, nothing is capturing at all. Finally, IT comes up, and they're like, we have researched this every way from Sunday. He is not making phone calls, okay? It's not the call logs aren't capturing. He's not making any phone calls. Like, he wasn't even logged in. And we're like, but his manager is saying he's hearing him. And we did not have the ability to do live monitoring. We didn't think. But they were like, actually, you do.
Yeah.
Here's how, but we didn't know that.
We didn't know about that when we first started yet.
So Sophia goes in and she starts live monitoring. This motherfucker is sitting there making up conversations in his head and having them out loud with people. So his manager thinks he's taking calls. He's sitting there. How much work does it take to make up a conversation in your head? And we were giving him, like, because nothing was capturing and there were no stats, they were giving him an average of his last few bonuses.
Right, yeah.
Because we thought it was our fault. Like, the system wasn't working. That's not his fault. So he's pretty much stolen that money, and he's making up these conversations. How hard did you have to work to come up with imaginary scenarios to fake talk about so your manager
8 hours
you?
every day.
That is, I mean, and this, considering this went on for like 4 or 5 months, that is an insane amount of work to not work.
I'm telling you, it's ridiculous. So we see it all the time. Like, so there's a setting that they can do on their computers within the system. And what'll happen is if they don't answer the call within a certain amount of time, it automatically rolls the call to the next agent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so we've been working and asking for like 6-7 months now. Can you please take that setting out? And we can't figure out how to get it out, whatever. And pretty much we've had to fire, I don't even know, like, I know on my team alone, I had like 3 or 4 agents that we've had to fire because they were rolling calls.
Oh, God.
It's just constant throughout the entire call center. And it's like one person found out about this.
Don't you hate that?
And then they told all their little fucking friends, and now their friends are doing it, and now these first assholes have been fired, but then the second or third round of assholes is doing it. So now they know that we're hip to it, so they don't do it that much now. So it's not as rampant as it was.
I hate that when shit like travels like
Yeah.
that, where you're like one person person figured out how to get over on the system. Now
But
everybody's doing
You know
it.
what, though? When I was on the phones, like after I got off the phones, I remember when I was in project, my supervisor came to me and he was like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." I was like, "Okay." He was like, "So tell me about some of the ways that agents are able to avoid calls." I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Don't play stupid. If anybody knows how to do this shit, I know it's you." So how are they doing this? How are they putting themselves in different statuses so that doesn't affect their adherence and all their time and everything else? And I was like, oh, fucking easy, man. And the system we had there was super simple. And I was telling him, and he was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I was like, "No, every fucking body does this." He was like, "Well, they won't be doing it no more, goddammit." Right, because he was like, "I knew if anybody knew how to do this shit, it was you, because you always had good stats, but I could look and see like." The fuck is she doing? She's walking around talking to people right now. She should be on a phone call, and because I knew how to play the fucking system.
Absolutely.
There's certain things when you just have a fuck off day or whatever, But whenever before we switched over from one to the other, we could go into any status. Our adherence didn't mean shit, really.
Right.
We could I need to take 5 minutes because this call was too hard. And we could go outside, smoke a cigarette, and come back. And, it was all very, whatever, But then once we switched over, then it was like, all of the adherence needs to be great and everything, So the agents always find a way to fuck over the system. Like, we have a thing called Call Store. And so that's when we're reaching out to call a store or a guest, right?
Oh, okay.
And so for the longest time, our agents would always be like, "Well, I was on a long phone call because I had to call this restaurant and blah, blah, blah," and you'd be like, no. See, because you're only in Call Store while you're dialing the number. When you hit that little green phone or the little thing that says begin transfer or begin call when you're calling out after a call, now you're on a call.
Yeah.
So that means that you were sitting in Call Store for however long that was. So don't tell me that's why your Call Store is high. What you're doing is you're sitting in Call Store so that you don't get any calls.
Yeah.
And you think I'm stupid. So.
Oh my God. One of the first, I think I've mentioned this before, but when I went over to the Cal group, it was all guys as in the leadership team. And I was the only girl. So I ended up being like the firing sidekick or the write-up sidekick as the girl that would go be the witness. Especially for other girls, they wanted to make sure there was a witness to what happened and that nothing inappropriate happened. Okay, fine. Well, Harry, I didn't know him very well. He seemed kind of soft-spoken, and I hadn't really had too many interactions with him. And he pulls me in to be a witness to this write-up. He's writing this girl up for job avoidance because she's spending tons of time leaving voicemail messages that should not take this fucking long. And what she's doing, what I figured out, was she's leaving a message. She's letting the message run until the voicemail would say, if you're satisfied with your message, press 1. If you would like to re-record your message, press 2. She'd press for 2 and then re-record it. And then sit in silence and then re-record it. And this would go on for like 20, 30 minutes, right? So I'd figured this out, and he pulls her in, and he's talking to her, and she's pretty, he's pretty calm, and he's asking her questions. He's doing it right. He's not just accusing her. He's asking her, okay, can you explain this, blah, blah, blah. And of course she lies, and, oh, it's taking long to leave messages, and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, it turns into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? And he freaks out, and he's like, he starts yelling at her, you're wasting time. I'm not paying you to do this. And she's like, well, your system doesn't work. And I was just trying to explain like how this blah. And he's like, I don't pay you to think. And it was like,
God.
oh, Jesus. Like he lost his mind. So when she left, all of a sudden he turned back into normal Harry. And he was like, I think that went well. And I was like, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde much? And he goes, this means? Like, because he was Romanian, so he didn't understand. And I was like, whoa. Dude. But that was always Harry's thing, is like, and he was right, technically. He's like, I'm not paying you to fuck off.
You know what? I had an agent that had just come to my team, and first off, she was asleep on the phones, and so I told her
Jesus.
not to fucking sleep on the phones, which it's pretty
Shouldn't have to tell people, don't sleep at work.
Don't sleep at work on the phones.
Unless you're on a break.
So
or
then
lunch.
I noticed that she's in tech issue. So I'm just like, hey, what's going on? Don't get an answer. But then I see her walk by. I was like, what the fuck is she doing? So I go over there and I'm like, hey, are you having a problem? You're in tech issue. She was like, no, I need to get some coffee. I said, well, you do that on your breaks. She was like, well, I could either go to sleep or I could get some coffee.
Fuck
And you
you.
told me not to sleep on the phones. I said, okay, well, that's what your breaks are used for. And we don't pay you to sleep or get coffee. You do that on your own time.
So don't fucking threaten me.
Right. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Oh my God. So
I said,
That-
and guess what? You were in tech issue for like the last 10, 15 minutes. I'm not fixing it. And I'm going to send an email out to all the supervisors and tell them not to fucking fix it.
mm-hmm.
You asshole.
So get this. This was, once again, long story. I'll simplify it. I had this relationship with this manager who was just a fucking dick, and I'll call him Jake. Jake?
From State Farm.
Yeah, Jake from State Farm. Jake from State Farm. What are you wearing, Jake
She
from
sounds
State Farm?
hideous.
I know. Good Lord. Khakis. Anyway,
I know.
so Jake was... Jake and I got off onto the wrong foot right away. He was super, awkward, so socially awkward, to the point where other managers, Frank and Harry, would all joke around that he was a serial killer, right in front of them. Like, he was just that guy. That's just so strange. And did not give a fuck about interpersonal relationships, right? Yeah.
Oh,
So,
Jesus. Yes, he was a fucking...
he was a nutball.
I swear to God, he had a pickle jar full of fingers.
You know.
I know he did.
Totally. So, he was just a weirdo. Didn't give a shit. The first coaching, because I didn't really coach them there because there were so many before I got my QA Danny. So, but I sat in on their first coaching when I arrived so that they could get to know me. And this is the person that's going to be scoring your calls now. He fucking sits in this coaching and he's like, so this is Laura. She's the QA now. Now, we all know that quality is stupid and a waste of time, but we have to play along. Right in front of me. I'm like,
Wow.
no, I'm
Do I stink too? I mean,
I'm
come on.
not here, jackass. It was just he really felt like they're, and I get it, a little bit. It's collections, you're there to collect as much money as possible, but
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. But quality is an important thing. It can help you collect more, and he didn't look at it that way. And our relationship just got more and more and more intense and combative. And I mean, he was
super douchey too.
He was.
He was. And that didn't help.
I would walk down the aisle and he would whistle the Wicked Witch of the West theme. He told my QA Danny that he had seen some horror movie and the devil in the movie reminded him of her. I was like, wow, okay. I mean, just combative, would argue about everything, was just a fucking dick. So our relationship was getting more and more intense and more combative. And one day, once again, long story, I'll keep it short, he hauled off and hit me.
He's a fucking dick.
And I ended up getting called into my boss's office, and an HR representative and my boss, all women, all with daughters, who basically said, he didn't hit you that hard. It was like,
but what if you would have hit him back?
Really? I'm like, is that what you would say to your daughters? That's what always bugged me about that whole thing. And it ended up being super contentious. And the only reason they tried really hard to fire me. They moved my desk to sit right next to him. That was my punishment. Harry insisted on punishing me for daring to tell anybody about the shit that goes on behind the scenes in that goddamn department. So they were just assholes. Oh my God, they were such pricks. But all of that is to explain the relationship between me and this guy. Now, after the hit, I will say he worked really hard at improving himself as a person. He started genuinely caring about, people and interpersonal relationships. He started recognizing people's good work, wishing them, happy birthday, good morning, genuinely trying to engage and be a good person. I give him a lot of credit. He worked really hard, and by the time I left there, he was actually one of my favorite people to work with, which was sad.
So yeah, quite frankly, yeah.
But that was our history, right? So one morning we had this issue where everybody every morning, and a department of 100 people, they're coming in 15 to 20 minutes early, which you were allowed to clock in early, so you could go to your computer or go get coffee or whatever. Get to your computer, get logged in, and review any changes to policy, review what you got to do for the day, look at your emails, and then start to take calls right on the dot at the start of your shift, right? Well, what we figured out that people were doing was, or the client figured it out, Cal. They were like, your calls don't actually start until around a half hour after your reps actually clock in and are logged in. They were thinking there was a problem with the call recordings. But then they were like, no, it's job avoidance. They're going to get coffee, whatever. And everybody felt like, well, this isn't a big deal, And we're like, you're getting here early. Go get your coffee then.
Right.
But they felt like they shouldn't have to do that on their time. But the point we always took was like, okay, let's do the math here. You've got 100 agents. Let's make it easy, right? An extra half hour you're getting paid for that you're not actually working.
Right.
Times 100 agents times 5 days a week times, everybody gets 2 weeks of vacation. So 50 weeks a year. You're talking over $12,000 that you're throwing away on time that's not getting worked.
Right.
Fuck you.
There's no profit there.
Right. Like, hello, you're not getting paid for this. That's a lot of money to be throwing away.
Yeah.
Even for a big business, that's a good chunk of money to just be chucking out the window because you want to go get coffee because you didn't want to do it on your personal time. So this had been a big issue. So early in the morning, Jake's team shift was the super early 6 a.m. shift. I'm already there. I get in at 5:30. My QA Danny comes in. Her and I are sitting at my desk. We're chit-chatting about the day. We always had our little debrief in the morning. Peripherally, I hear James talking to one of his reps who, after they specifically said, don't go get coffee, blah, blah, blah. He's telling her, you went to get coffee. What are you doing? Now, you know us. Bad tone will jump out to us.
Right.
And especially that motherfucker, if he had a nasty, condescending tone, it had jumped out to me. I don't remember specifically, focusing on it, but I heard it, and I didn't hear anything bad.
Right.
He tells her, we told you not to go get coffee. Do that on your time. You're here, you're logged in, you need to be taking calls. She flips her shit and in the middle of the floor starts yelling at him. Now, I'm pregnant at this point. I'm sitting there with my hands on my belly like, whoa, holy crap. And it was so funny because TJ started kicking real hard and Danny was like, ooh, TJ don't like that because my whole dress was moving. It was like, good Lord. She's screaming, don't you fucking talk to me like I'm one of your fucking kids. Like, you don't fucking speak to me in that condescending tone, you son of a bitch. Like, yelling at her manager in the middle of the floor like this. Now, I wouldn't have handled that so well. He was like, he's like, come on, let's go into a conference room. We'll talk about it. She's like, no. And he did the right thing. He just kind of walked away and was like, okay, we'll talk about this when you're calm. He goes over to his desk. Now, once again, I've had a contentious relationship with this piece of shit. But by this point, our relationship was actually not so bad. So I'm like, holy crap. Danny goes to her desk because she wants to go down to smoke and I'm going to go with her. When Danny walks back, we assumed he was going to his desk to type out an email to HR.
Right.
Danny had walked by his desk and she's like, he's actually doing work. He's not actually doing anything. And I'm like, okay.
Oh.
So I grab my little sticky note. I write on a little sticky note this thing that basically said, if you need a witness to that, to tell HR you did nothing wrong.
If you need help, blink twice.
I know, right? Let me know. So I walk over, I hand him the note. He reads it, and I'm standing there with Danny, and he looks up at me, and this kind of broke my heart. Even with my awful relationship with this asshole, it really broke my heart. I'm standing, he's sitting, and he looks up at me. He looked like the cat from Puss in Boots. He looked so sad. And he looks up at me, and he's like, Lord, was I mean? Like, did I do, something wrong? Like, he genuinely, because he had worked so hard on being a better manager and in general just being a better person, and to have this girl freak out, he genuinely was hurt. And I was like, no, Jake, you did not do anything wrong. Okay, fine. We go down a little bit later. Frank and Harry come in. They pull everybody. I was the last one they pulled. I go into the conference room for them to ask me what happened, and they got HR on the phone. And I give the whole story. I'm like, he didn't do dick. And the HR lady was so funny. She's like, we're going to potentially pull maybe some more reps to understand, to make sure that, we're not just jumping to conclusions and saying she's wrong. But I'm going to say this. I know your history with this guy, And if you're defending him,
Right, then come on.
I'm going to say he didn't do anything wrong. I was like, look, and I'm sitting there like super pregnant. Like, I could be a dick to this guy and probably get him fired. But that's, I think I've said, I don't know if I've said this on this show. I'm a Taurus. And I read something about Taurus once that really rang true to me. And it said that for Taurus, in any injustice is like a little bell inside our head that just keeps ringing. And it will not stop ringing until we feel that that injustice has been addressed.
Right.
I'm not going to fuck that man over. When that would have seriously been an injustice,
Right.
and it still would be ringing in my fucking
See,
ears.
and I'm a Scorpio, and I would have been like, fuck him.
You're like, I don't give
it.
a fuck.
It's
You
called
fucked
karma,
me.
bitch. And I hope she punches you in the mouth.
Oh my God.
Because that's the... Oh, my God, I forgot to tell you what they found at work.
What? You
So
should see Tanya's face right now.
Sunday, I came to work.
She looks like, oh, sweet Jesus God, Mother Mary and Joseph,
So
please
we
help
had
me.
this relatively new supervisor. He was a team lead. Now he's a supervisor.
Okay.
We call him Manly Man. Very
Manly
good looking.
Man.
Very good looking. Put together. You know, beard, just everything. Kind of looks like that boxer guy, the little Irish one that just fought Mayweather. Kind of looks like him, right?
Okay.
But he's a cute guy. Real nice. Always has a very stern look on his face. Let me ask you a question.
Like he always looks like a Marine.
Yeah, he's just always. So, but the sweetest fucking guy ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he comes over to my desk
Oh, no.
on Sunday when he gets in. He's like, so can I ask you a question? I'm like, yeah, sure, what's up? He was like, so yesterday, I don't know if you heard about this, but on so-and-so's desk. Because the way they're set up, like the supervisor desk and then there's another adjoining desk. And that's where an agent sits. And they're all like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently the agent that sits closest to him, the day before, they found a butt plug on her desk. One of those glass ones, too.
What the fuck?
So he comes to me. And now, mind you, a couple of the agents call me Mama Tanya. Because anytime somebody
You are Mama Tanya.
anytime somebody needs to de-escalate it or help or, is having a bad time, they come get me and I help them, right? So dude comes to me and
I don't
he's-
know if I've heard a word you've said after glass butt
plug.
plug.
Yeah.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
So
Oh my God.
he comes to me and he's like, so did they tell you? And I was like, no.
I think I would have remembered that.
Yeah. He was like, yeah, so it was on her desk and two of the other supervisors put a headset bag, like the bag the headsets come in, over it and dumped it in the garbage. But I'm just wondering, like, what if she wants it back? And I was like, oh, yeah. I don't know. What if she wants it? What if she misses it or something?
Why
He was
would
like,
you
do you think those
bring-
kind of things have sentimental value? I was like, I don't fucking know. That's disgusting, right? That's what he asked me.
No, you need to stop talking because I can't.
That's what he asked me.
What is the butt plug?
What if it has sentimental value? And I was like, I don't know. So then he was like, yeah, so I kind of want to talk to her about
Can
it.
our audience email us if somebody has ever been sentimentally attached to a butt plug?
butt
Can somebody let
plug
us
or,
know, or a vibrator or something?
Silver bullet,
Are
whatever you got.
sentimentally attached to your sex toys?
Your blow up doll, Susie. So then he says, I kind of want to talk to her about this, because for one, it's inappropriate to have that at work, and two, like, I wanted her to know that it was thrown away. And he was like, so I feel like a female should. I said, you know what? No, I will help you guys with a lot of shit around here. I will talk to your agents about a lot of stuff that you're uncomfortable doing, but I am not going over to that twacked out hoe and telling her and asking her if she misses her fucking butt plug. It's not going to happen, sir. Keep it moving. He was like, but what if... Then these assholes come and show me a picture of it, and they've taken a
If
picture...
you want me to be a witness, because obviously this could end up being construed as a sexual harassment situation, fine. But I'm not having.
I'm not doing
conversation
it.
with her.
Get one of these. I said I wasn't even here yesterday.
Oh
So
my
I don't know. All I know is
God.
hearsay. I didn't touch it. I didn't throw it in the... Nothing. But... Really, a glass butt plug, clearly. And this asshole says, I didn't know what it was. So two of the other supervisors came by and saw it, and they were like, oh my God, there's a butt plug. He said, I thought it was art.
can't even breathe right now. I thought it was art. Oh my god. I can't. I can't.
He
Oh
thought
my
it was art.
I can't breathe.
Yeah. So all week long, that's been like the thing, like, and every time we see this agent, like, she hasn't said anything about, her missing butt plug.
I wouldn't say anything.
I wouldn't either.
First of all, I wouldn't have brought it in. But...
Right? Who just carries a butt plug in their purse?
Oh my god.
But she's a bit of a tweaker. So, tweakers have been known to do something strange for a little bit of change. Maybe she was just trying to make between payday. I don't know. They're really weird people. So, yeah,
Do you remember that girl that was passion parties, like the sex toy stuff consultant? And
I don't like that girl.
I know you don't, but she she was selling her little sex toys at work, and they finally had to tell her
to stop.
This is inappropriate. And
you can't have a credenza full of dildos.
Well, hold on. She was walking around like showing people the catalogs, and when they told her to stop, she brought in like a little silver briefcase of sex toys,
full of samples
and set it up
shit.
like a little pop-up shop on her desk,
a little kiosk, if you will.
And they had to tell her this is not appropriate to do.
Right.
But the fact they had to tell her that. Now okay, this is funny. I'm not going to say.
She's the one who also dressed up like the slutty Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz.
God, at work.
I know,
work, right? Good
yeah.
Lord. So this is awful. So I'm not even going to say who this friend is. Just going to say it's a woman.
I'm sorry. No, I'm playing.
This is Tanya. No, I'm kidding. Once I tell the story, you're going to be like, no, that wasn't me. So my friend was living in this house she was renting it, but it was for sale, and she didn't want to buy it, right? So she had to keep it clean. So when they brought people over, to look at it, it was presentable. Okay, fine. Well, they were supposed to give her 24 hours notice before they brought somebody over to show the house. Well, one day she gets a call. She hasn't gotten any calls or any notice that anybody was going to come over and the house was going to be shown or anything like that. Well, she gets a call from the owner, who is pissed at her, screaming at her that somebody had shown the house, and they had gone in and there was a sex toy out, right? And I'm talking, this was a big mama jamma. Like, we had a nickname for that thing.
Oh my God.
It was huge. And they had seen this thing. It was just sitting out. And they were like, this was highly inappropriate, and blah, 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 blah. And she flipped the fuck out. Because she's like, it's not inappropriate. It's private. And nobody fucking told me they were going to be in my goddamn house. And the owner was like, wait, they didn't tell? She's like, of course I would not have left my dildo out, you asshole. Like, and he apologized. He was like, oh, you're right. That's on them. That is private for you. But here's the funniest part. After that, every day, if she hadn't gotten notice that somebody was going to be showing the house, she left the sex toy on a stool right next to the front door with a note that said, you are not authorized to be here. Please vacate the premises.
Oh my God.
Which I thought was awesome. I was like, cool.
Yeah, that wasn't me.
No, that was not
me.
you.
Nah,
That was
wasn't
like,
me.
oh my God.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm
I'm still on this. Who brings a butt plug to her? And the fact her boss thought it was art.
yeah.
Here's my question. Did he ask and she told him it was art?
No, he just assumed.
Brings it to work and puts it.
It had
on
like
the
designs
desk?
on it. It was like a swirly design on it.
Why?
It was. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she was cleaning out her purse and it fell out. I don't know. But it was just sitting there on the desk.
It was funny. At Shoe, they gave us out these. They had these little cones that had the company name on them, and they were for some sort of little prize thing, and they gave them out to a whole bunch of new hires, and I ended up getting one. And my friend Jay, made a joke that it looked like a butt plug, and we just, because they were super little, and he was like, all we need to do is paint it black. So I painted it black, and I wrote on there in white out, the shoe welcome committee gift. So I was like, prepare to get fucked up the
You're
ass.
gonna get fucked.
And oh my God, everybody, Jay was like, I cannot believe you painted that thing black. And I was like, fuck yeah, I painted that thing black. But then Frank and Harry were pissed. They were like, I was like, it's the shoe welcome committee. Welcome, be prepared to get fucked.
So I sent my boss a picture of these cookies that I wanted to make. And she said that if I was going to make them and drop them off at work, that I needed to do it anonymously. Nah.
You struggled with that word.
Yes, I did.
No.
And here are the cookies that I want to bring to work.
Shut the fuck
I
up.
want those.
You have to put that on our Instagram when this episode.
Okay.
Message me that and I'll post it on your Instagram
Okay.
when I post this episode.
I
so
thought
funny.
that it was.
So
Those were
'cause-
awesome cookies. I'm
so-
gonna put it on my Instagram right now.
So everybody's not like, what is she talking about? They look like little smiley happy people, one fucking the other one up the ass from behind. It's
Yeah. Those are going to be my go-to work cookies.
welcome to shoe. You should.
Those are going to be my go-to work.
Maybe I'll give
cookies.
those to Amanda and have her drop them off at work.
Yeah, because those
Oh my
are
God.
pretty.
That's kind of amazing. All right, so that's our episode for this week. So until next time, I'm Laura.
And I'm Tanya.
Love your faces.
Smooches.
Like what you hear? Rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcasting platform. And follow us on our Facebook page by searching Q as in Cucumber. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram by searching QAIC_Lara, LARA, and QAIC_Tanya, TANYA. Don't forget to check out our other show, hosted by me and Jessica James, called The Parent Memoirs. And we want to hear from you. Share your stories by emailing us at qasInCucumber@yahoo.com, and you might just hear your stories on a future episode.